Alas, the day has come upon us. The final time UCLA goes to Tucson to play Arizona as conference members in the McKale Center. Man, a sad day, but a great, glorious time to flashback, look at all the memories, and can the Bruins win? Here on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making the show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, review. Thanks for your support. Every day, or you've known, we've talked about UCLA football's offense, the defense, and the schedule with the Big Ten next year in 2024. The men have had a resurgence of sorts, a one-week mini resurgence. Will that continue into Tucson? And for the women, it's a crucial big-time mountain trip to Utah, and more importantly, started in Colorado with the big game. We'll react to that either late on the Friday evening or the Saturday morning, depending on how the game finishes and what my schedule looks like. In the meantime, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Are you going to buy the Bruins getting 3 wins in a row? Do you believe in it? Can UCLA do it? Well, all right. Let's take a look at what the Bruins need to do to beat Arizona in this game on the road. What do they need to do to beat Arizona, to beat Tommy Lloyd, to beat Caleb Love, to beat an Arizona team that has all 5 of their players in the starting lineup averaging double figures? A team that is 9-0 at home, that has won every single home game in this season by 15 or more points. 4-2 in the Pac-12. They are slotted as a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament in bracketology by Joe Lunardi. They lead the conference in scoring margin, team field goal percentage, and rebounding. Oh, what does UCLA struggle in some categories? Well, when they're not playing well, it's rebounding, it's scoring the ball, team field goal percentage. Where do all these things matter? Well, when you're playing at Arizona, they have just boat race teams at home this year. It has generally not been close. All the wins for Arizona dominated at home. All the losses away from home, usually pretty close. But there's a couple of similar things you need to do to beat Arizona, and they all kind of happen in the same way for Arizona in their losses. Now, is UCLA going to have a favorable chance? No. You can go through, if you believe in crazy simulations, if you want to go predictors, simulators, you want to see what happens, there are a few ways UCLA can win it out of 5 billion chances in this game. And I'm going to tell you what those chances are. All right. Return of the keys to the game graphic if you're watching on YouTube. It has been long missing since football season. There's Mick Cronin if you're watching in the graphic saying, what do we need to do to beat Arizona? Number 1, the Bruins must defend the 3. Oh, you thought the Arizona State game was going to be a little run and gun? They'd go up and get in your face and shoot some threes? No. Hold on. No. Key number 1 is defend the 3. We thought this was going to be a funky game. We thought this would be a goofy game to defend the 3 against Arizona State. No. Arizona in the last 3 wins has had, last 3 home games, which have all been wins, 10 or more threes made. And they've shot nearly at a 50% clip. This is a game UCLA can go in and just for no reason can go lose by 30. Just because the crowd's energized, it's UCLA, the 2 schools, the meaning behind the game in Tucson, as it will still have the same excitement in Pauley Pavilion. These 2 conference rivals, no more after this season. Arizona can come out on fire and just blitz them with 15 threes, and the game was over before it started. So key number 1 for UCLA, which plays a completely opposite style of Arizona. Very defensive heavy. Would love this game to be in the 60s. Love this game to be closer to 62-57. It's not, but you have to defend the 3. Arizona can go cold. It's rare. It happens. At home, usually never in this season when Caleb Love feeds off the energy and the rest of the team does, with Oumar Ballo picking up the misses and scooping it up, putting it in the bucket. You got to defend the three. That is key number one. You don't defend the three, you're just going to get run out of the gym. And after we saw what happened with Utah, that could happen again with the energy in Tucson. And they would love to pour it on if they have the opportunity to. So defend the three, or else it's going to be looking more like Salt Lake City than what we saw this last week. You must defend the three. You don't, there's just no chance. And if you defend a three, that leads us to key number two, no turnovers. Don't let them get out into transition. Arizona against SC, I believe, had how many steals? They had at least 15 steals against USC, if I got that correct. They are one of the best teams at forcing turnovers. 15 steals versus USC. Top 25 in the country when forcing steals. And they've had 7 games this year with 10 or more steals. What does UCLA struggle with? It's turnovers. What does Mick Cronin do when any player does something dumb? Usually either after a mistake defensively / rebounding or a horrible turnover. Hence, Jan Vide played a minute, got benched, and didn't come back in the Arizona State game. Even though it looked like he slipped, Mick Cronin has no patience. You get yanked right away. So you turn the ball over against Arizona. Even if they're cold, they'll still put up 85-plus points on you, and they're going to get out in transition, and that's going to be a struggle for UCLA offensively. You turn it over in this environment, they're just going to throw alley-oops, dunks, the crowd's going. Probably not going to win that game if you fail to take care of the basketball. So one, defend the three. Even if they're knocking down logo threes in your face, defend the three. Because that is where Caleb Love is going to take it and not hesitate. No hands down, Sebastian Mack. No hands down anybody. Hands up, defend, and no careless turnovers. No going to the rack. No Bona trying to dribble in the paint. They're going to pack it with their bigs. Kick it out. Hit the open three. Play efficient offense like they did to close the Arizona State game. I know they're helped with free throws, but how they did to close that Arizona State game. And number 3, score points, please. Score the basketball. Please, thank you. Maybe, hopefully, will they? Arizona this season has not had a game where they've scored less than 70 points. UCLA has been hard-pressed to have a game when they've scored 70 points this year. So that is the dynamic that is going in this game for Mick Cronin and his team, which have shown a lot of positive signs. There was life on Sunday when they beat Washington and scored 70 points. They almost scored 70 in a win against Arizona State, helped out by 20 second-half free throws, 20-plus, and 4 technical fouls, a flagrant, everything got a little chippy. The chippiness and the energy is going to be in there in this game against Arizona. You must score the basketball against Arizona. It's not going to be like last year's game in Tucson where it was 58-52. I think UCLA can D up Arizona and keep them in check. And in check, in quotes, means probably not give up 80 to 90 points. That can keep them closer to 70 to 68 in a really good defensive effort, because these aren't a bunch of seniors and veterans or NBA level talent like last year's team had with the National Defensive Player in the Year and Jalen Clark and Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Tiger Campbell, who could all control the tempo, try not to turn it over as much, and then find ways to go. This is a team who last year, with all that, could barely score in Arizona. And this year's team struggles even worse to shoot the basketball. Even more. So you have to find a way to score the basketball. In all of Arizona's losses, the teams have beaten them by scoring at least 73 points. At least 73 points. In the losses, it was Stanford getting stupid hot from 3 on New Year's Eve. 100 points they scored against Arizona in regulation, making 16 threes. UCLA is not going to do that, but they need to have a similar pace up and down the floor, urgency, and get the ball in the cup. Purdue, well, they've got a beast in Zach Edey who can just be unstoppable, and even Arizona in the rest days probably not going to limit Zach Edey, even though they did their best in that game. Purdue scoring 92 points. Then there's some outliers, right? The weird Washington State loss. What happened in that game? Well, Washington State's got a sneaky good big in Isaac Jones. They found ways to turn over the roster and be good. They beat Arizona 73-70, the least amount of points Arizona has scored in this season. And then the only time they've scored 90 points and lost in the Tommy Lloyd era was against FAU, 96-95 double overtime. Arizona had a big lead, blew it, had to come back late, send that game to overtime. They would have only scored 73-ish points, 72 points, if they didn't hit some clutch buckets late in regulation to keep that game going against a scrappy FAU team that made it to the Final Four a season ago. So there's recipes for success. The Bruins, you have to score 70. Like, you have to get 70 has to be the goal for this team. Offensive execution is a must in this game for the Bruins to come out on top. Yes, don't turn it over. Defend the three. A sneaky fourth key, which I've not talked about, is rebounding. Because if for some reason they're laying bricks from three, you got to get the basketball and not let Oumar Ballo get rebounds. He had 21 against FAU. And where did Arizona struggle in some of these games? Sometimes when Purdue took it to them, what do you got? The ability to rebound. Washington State kept them in check, under 40% shooting, closer to 33% against Washington State. As a team, they shot 34%. So Arizona can go cold. They absolutely can. But it's a different hero every day. 5 different guys average double figures, and their whole starting lineup averaged double figures. One of 3 teams in the country. Anybody can do it against UCLA. Now it's up to the Bruins. Where's the growth for Mack? Can he have a big game? Can he get to the free throw line? I think UCLA could win this game in a similar style to what Washington State did, albeit that was at Pullman, a different type of atmosphere. Slow it down. 20 free throws. That I don't think that's happening in Tucson, but that's the type of game it's got to be. Slow it down, ugly. The Bruins get to 70 because they took 20 free throws. That's going to be Mack getting to the line. Stefanovic needs to hit 4 threes, and Bona needs to dominate Ballo. Those are 3 things that have to happen in conjunction with these keys to the game for UCLA to pull off a huge upset win on the road and continue this recent week-long surge in the midst of Pac-12 play before a week off and a road trip to SC. That is what needs to happen for a win. All right. Now, all the emotions and everything, it's time to flash back to a couple of great memories in the UCLA-Arizona era, and that's when they've been conference rivals. So even though it dates back to the early 1920s, it was one-sided for a while, and then Lute Olson came, and then there's been some really epic matchups since in the UCLA-Arizona history and Tucson, in Tucson specifically. I know there's other games. We're talking UCLA, Tucson, UCLA good memories in Flashback Friday next on Locked On UCLA. All right. I just got done telling you about possible keys to UCLA, Arizona. If you're looking at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, you'll see the points lying heavily with Arizona, minus 17.5. There's many ways this game Arizona can win by 35, double the point spread. But if you're a new customer and you got 150 in bonus bets guaranteed because you place a $5 bet, I'm going to tell you, I think UCLA can certainly keep this within 17.5 points. The day of this podcast dropping, Arizona's getting 17.5 on FanDuel. Check it out, because win or lose, you get $150 in bonus bets if you place a $5 bet. So check it out. Win or lose, drop some love for the UCLA-Arizona game. If you can, the app's super easy to use, many different ways to play, and check out the live same-game parlay, because maybe you want to double down in the game and look it out and check it out. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, also an official partner of the NFL. All right. You know, on this show, you get a lot of in-depth analysis, hot takes, right? I know, keeping UCLA within 17.5, that's a hot take. But let's give you the hottest take of the day. Right now, the best lineup in LA right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. You can have the favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. These guys can give you low rates and save you up to big-time bucks because they've got an exciting new rookie sensation. They're electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. To round out the lineup, They've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. Those guys could lower your monthly payments, get you on the road to owning your car faster. It's a hot take, but seriously, no one beats the lineup right now at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA or in the surrounding area and let one of their amazing team members help you, or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com. That's Logix, logixbanking.com. All right, cruising on into the next segment of Locked On UCLA. Let's take back memories of old. I went back, did a little research, trying to figure out what were some of the better times, fun memories for UCLA. Obviously, when the Bruins went to 3 Final Fours in the mid-2000s, you had 8 straight wins against Arizona, but specifically I tried to circle in on either a game or moments in the heat of the UCLA-Arizona rivalry that I thought, in Tucson specifically, were exciting moments, obviously, in UCLA's favor. Because you could go with some epic games. I'm specifically talking to UCLA, Arizona, where the Bruins came out in a good one. You can go back to January 11th, 1992, and think of a time, a day and age, where UCLA, that was a good team. And Arizona, that was Lute Olson. That was an exciting time then. What was so impressive about January 11th in 1992 in this Flashback Friday edition of Locked On UCLA? Arizona had a 71-game winning streak at the McKale Center. The Bruins had lost 4 times. It was a streak that began in early December of 1988. 71 straight home games that Arizona had won. One of the longest winning streaks in the last 30 to 40 years of college basketball at home. And that was a team in Arizona that had beaten the Shaquille O'Neal-led LSU Tigers in December 1991, holding Shaq to 10 points, no dunks, and beat them by 20 in Tucson. They beat the Shaq-led LSU Tigers by 20. Remember, UCLA was number 2. They had Don McLean, who, very loquacious fella, always on Petros and money talking. He's always on the Pac-12 broadcast talking, one of the legendary Bruins that deserves more credit and love. He came out and balled out. He came out and had a great game because UCLA snapped the 71-game home court winning streak for Arizona that game in an 89-87 victory, where the Bruins eventually made it to the Elite 8, went 28-5, won the conference at 28, went 16-2, and then knocked off Arizona, who eventually went to tumble and lose in the first round to East Tennessee State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. A game that was epic because, one, McLean, I believe, 38 points, career high. It was Derek Martin hitting a shot at the buzzer for UCLA to win that game. If you remember, unfortunately, a year earlier, that's when Arizona hit a shot at Pauley Pavilion at the buzzer to send that game into overtime. Dick Vitale, national television, little slip, pop, loose ball, throw it up, prayer, knocks it at the buzzer, go to overtime. Arizona wins that game. UCLA, a year later in Arizona, buzzer-beating shot from Derek Martin, and from 10 feet, snaps the streak. McLean with 38 points. That's a baller way. Snap your rival's 71-game home court winning streak on a buzzer beater in front of a frenzied crowd, a team that was feeling all cocky and confident. And I'm reading an old article from the Tucson.com where it quotes Don McLean, who just quietly said to reporters the day before the game that, I think we've got a good chance of winning. The day before the game, in front of your bitter rival, where the crowd's going to go crazy, and they hold nothing back in Arizona. Absolutely not. And he's like, I think we got a good chance of winning. And in his mind, he's extra confident. That's just what he said, as quoted as saying. Already smacked Shaq, right, and the Tigers of LSU, and the Bruins go knock that one. That's a good memory from 1992 for that UCLA season. And while this has somewhat been a large one-sided rivalry in the early start, right, because of UCLA's dominance, and then early on before Lute Olson got to Arizona, so UCLA has an upper hand in the overall winning. In Tucson, Arizona has a 28-20 edge, I believe. But there was a time in the mid-2010s when the Bruins into the 2020s decade dominated in Tucson. UCLA won 4 straight games in Arizona. Of course, one of my favorites was the Lonzo Ball game, where the Lonzo Ball led team, where UCLA had already lost to Arizona. They go into Tucson. It was number 4, number 5, college game day, everything, all the hype in the rematch in that game. One of the more fun UCLA years, one of the greatest year in the Steve Alford era, and then everything else is kind of meh. You had UCLA go there, and I remember I was talking with a broadcast friend of mine, and he was like, because his wife was a big Arizona fan, I think an Arizona grad, and I was like, I think UCLA is going to win this game. He's like, there's no chance they win in the McKale Center. I was like, I think they do. Because that was the same UCLA team that went into Kentucky in Rupp Arena and won in the same season. Obviously, there's other things that happen, but whatever. UCLA, when they beat Arizona, took it to them in 2017, set off a miniature era of dominance in recent modern college basketball, since Arizona's become a much stronger, one of the stronger perennial college basketball programs. And the Bruins, in one of their longest streaks of winning in Tucson, 4 games in 5 years, in 17, 18, 2020, and in 2021, 4 straight wins in Arizona. The 2017 game snapped a 21-game home court winning streak for the Wildcats. Those are some of my favorite memories. So I'm not going to go back and forth and dictate every single one of these games. This is the last time the Bruins get to face off against Arizona as a conference member. And that's got to bring a tear to your eyes, bring a little misty eye. We're going to miss it. And yet, what does that mean for the future, right? This is a game, UCLA-Arizona, that was not supposed to happen. They weren't supposed to play in Tucson this year. The Pac-12 said, let's do something right for a change. They're like, wait a minute. We need UCLA at Arizona. We need that game to happen. Even if the Bruins aren't that good, that's got to happen. Obviously, we didn't realize how mediocre the Bruins were going to be to start this season. Still, UCLA at Arizona had to happen because they thought in 2023 that was the last time. So that crowd was rocking. This is the final time until who knows when that this game will be played. UCLA was supposed to play Colorado another time. So they switched out a Colorado home game that featured UCLA. So thank you to the Buffaloes. Even though Colorado needs a game, they would have liked an easier game to beat UCLA to help their NCAA tournament chances. The Bruins get to go to Arizona, nationally televised mid-Saturday game, matinee affair. And the Bruins get to go to Tucson one more time, which I think serves the college basketball world. Us Bruins fans, the Wildcat fans, West Coast college basketball deserves this game, and I'm glad we're getting it. And they deserve it for the future. How can we do it? I'm going to throw up some ideas. Simple, easy ideas, which have already been floated around by both head coaches. And then wild, wacky ideas, which you guys are going to disagree with, but I'm going to throw out them anyway. All right? Here on Locked On UCLA, good times, good vibes. Let's keep it rolling next on the pod. Well, maybe you're thinking about last-second trip to Tucson, or maybe you don't get to do so, right? Well, Game Time can help you either way if you're looking for last-second plans in Southern California or all around to get to an event, whether it's comedy, sports, theater, music, whatever it may be. They've got killer last-minute deals, Game Time does, with all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. So it takes the guesswork, Game Time does, out of buying tickets, because it's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase, right? It tells you the all-in prices, so you know what to expect when you arrive. You see the view from your seat. You know what you're going to do when you get there. And then exclusive flash deals with sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, and more, meaning you've always got the best options with Game Time. Check it out. Hey, maybe you want to go to that UCLA-Arizona game in Pauley Pavilion in a couple months' time. The last time these two teams will face off as conference rivals, and you want to check it out. Go to Game Time, download the app, make an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, locked on for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. So we've reached the final segment of the podcast. What is the way that we can keep this going forward? UCLA, Arizona, basketball, college basketball rivalry in its finest. It's been somewhat related to Duke, North Carolina. Obviously, it's different thresholds, but West Coasters will be like, it's better than that Tobacco Road rivalry, right? And all the craziness. UCLA, Arizona. UCLA is heading to the Big Ten. Arizona is heading to the Big 12. And we will not see these two teams face off outside of one last matchup in Pauley Pavilion and one last potential matchup in the Pac-12 tournament in Vegas. And other than that, there'd be a crazy dream scenario, which would just be ridiculous. Then, how are these two teams going to face off again? Either in the NCAA tournament or these preseason classics that all these television networks have been scheduling between big schools and big names on neutral sites, or you can schedule a home and home between the two schools, right? All right, dream scenario, these two teams meet later, and then you don't have to worry about the S-curve. If you think about it, in the NCAA tournament, they try to make sure teams don't face off against each other from conferences. They try to separate teams from conferences as much as they can in the earlier rounds. With the two teams being separated via conference affiliation, there's chances we will see UCLA and Arizona in the NCAA tournament in years to come. More likely than never, basically, right? More likely than the rare occurrence that it's already happened. It might actually happen again. We'll see. Now, in all reality, what do we want to have happen beyond just NCAA tournament implications and beyond them going and getting sent to play in a CBS Sports Classic in Atlanta, Georgia? Well, coaches Tommy Lloyd and Mick Cronin had already floated the idea before the season about how to keep this going, even with the addition and move of the conferences, seeing how those schedules work out and what their television network deals all work out to be. One, you could go meet in Vegas, meet in T-Mobile Arena, where they play the Pac-12 tournament, and play there in a mid-neutral site game. Make that a yearly thing, where Arizona's going to take up 70% of the arena, and until we get UCLA fans out there to Vegas to maybe take up 45%, that's just how it will be. And you can meet there, guarantee that happens every year, and make that an annual thing and get excited about that. Because UCLA is going to be traveling so much, they need to schedule Arizona. They need those close games. Now, as much as the Big 12 is very good at basketball right now, and the addition of Arizona is only going to increase that, Arizona might want easier non-conference schedules, even though that's not how Tommy Lloyd played things this year with a crazy schedule leading up to Pac-12 play for his battle-tested team. Teams are going to want their cupcakes. But this game could be played in Vegas or any neutral site arena. Maybe you do Vegas one year, you play it at the Phoenix Suns Arena, then you play it in Crypto, or dare I say, the new Intuit Dome that's going to open, the Clippers' new home. That would be interesting to play, right? In Inglewood. We talk about UCLA basketball or UCLA football in SoFi. What if they have the basketball game against the Wildcats in the Intuit Dome as a unique thing to rotate it? You could play it in Vegas, middle. You could play it in the Suns Arena, and then you could play it in Inglewood at the Intuit Dome, which is about to be built and finished pretty soon for the Clippers. Interesting thoughts. All right, now the real thoughts. One, the home and home. You can do a home game in LA. You can do it in Westwood. Then you can do one in Tucson. You can alternate that 1 year in, 1 year out, right? You do one game here, one game there. My personal favorite, which is not going to happen because teams generally don't do this anymore. And usually if they do, it's lower mid-major teams or the Mountain West maybe, depending on who it's at. Like New Mexico State, how they used to do it before things went crazy between those two schools. I would say you play in Westwood or Tucson early 1 year, and then you play the other home game either later in the season when there's an open date or later in the early winter portion of the schedule. So you play home and home each season against UCLA, Arizona. You guarantee sellouts for non-conference games, and you don't have to worry about scheduling a cupcake that adds to your schedule, most likely. It still keeps the West Coast side of basketball together, and you play 2 games. You're guaranteed you don't have to worry about 2 more games the rest of the way. Those are easy things to do. That's not far road trips. It's not like a buy game. You have to go pay somebody to come up and kick their butt or maybe kick their butt. You can go fly to Tucson. That's a cheap trip. You come back, that you go this way. I like the idea of instead of just one game a year, play twice at their home arenas where we can keep this going in the same season. Twice a year, that's not going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen. I would love for it to happen and be shocked. At best case scenario, I pretty much think based on what schedules are going to do, one game, home one year, you return it the next year, and it'll be alternating who has the home and home. Maybe it'll take a couple years off, depending on the coaches and the scheduling. I think it should be 2 games, one at UCLA, one at Arizona, and do that again and again and again. That is my thoughts. Those are my hopes and dreams. Let me know your crazy ideas to keep UCLA-Arizona going in basketball rivalry terms in the comments. Because that is what I thought and what I think and what I hope. What I hope is for a UCLA dub. They're not favored. They are plus 17.5. So I think the Bruins can get the points, but I want them to get the dub too and shock everybody. Hands up, Bruins fans. A-clap time, baby. It's going to be a long weekend of reacting to UCLA women's game. You got UCLA basketball against Arizona. Stay tuned for all that content, and then we're going to react to it and keep building and building and building for the rest of the week, because then it's UCLA SC after that. Get excited. 8-clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.